Good day, Barbarians. We have a lot to talk about with the 2.5 rework. The good, the bad, and mainly the indifferent. Let's talk about some positive things first. Tempering and Masterworking are changing. The changes to tempering are good, but not great. Now you will be able to pick one temper and put it directly on your weapon. We can no longer use 2 tempers, only 1, but you get to pick what it is. No more gambling with your tempers and breaking your items. That's amazing. The only thing that'll be different, of course, is the damage range. That's the new gamble. But having to only be able to pick 1, I don't really like that, if I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to pick damage. I'm going to pick like Flay Duration, Rend to deal double damage. That is still a positive change. Masterworking is also changing. It'll now no longer increase the stats on your weapons, just the quality of the damage that it does. So if we look here as our example, quality can now go up to 20%, and it'll be a random between, I think, 1 and 3% it said. As you increase, the damage per second on the weapon is the only thing that is going to increase. No more stat increase, no more Flay Duration, max health, none of that. That's an interesting change. Seems like a stat squish. We'll have to see how well that works. On to some negative and some indifference. Renown is changing. On Seasonal Realm, we are going to have to do Renown. And if it is going to be run around, do side quests, do dungeons, and then find statues, this is a terrible change. If Renown is changing to be something like do some strongholds, kill a world boss, do some Legion events, that's a great change. I really hope it doesn't stay the same, but now we just have to do it over again. That would be terrible. And to some indifference. Capstone dungeons are returning. I loved Capstone dungeons and they were great. It was a good damage check between World Tier 2 and 3 to see if you had enough damage to get to World Tier 3 or 4, respectively. But with how they've changed the actual game with the 4 difficulties pre-torment, 4 difficulties post-torment, it doesn't really make sense to bring Capstone dungeons back right now. World Tier 1 to 2 was a good increase, and World Tier 2 to 3 was an increase, and 3 to 4 was an increase, and it felt good. This, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play. It just feels weird. Are we going to get normal and hard, and have to do a Capstone dungeon to get into Expert? And then are we going to have to do another Capstone dungeon to go into Torment 1 that is not tied to the pits? Are we still going to have to do pits to get into Torment? Let's wait to see how this plays out. Another interesting change is they're adding something called the Tower, and there'll be leaderboards with the Tower. This sounds identical to Greater Rifts with pylons. I don't see a need to have this in the game when we could put leaderboards onto the pit. I thought leaderboards going to the pit would be a great addition. The Tower, I'll have to see how it plays, but it sounds pretty similar to the pit, so much so that I don't know how different it will be. That looks like it comes from D3. Maybe the Tower and the pit can be combined into one. We'll call it the Pit Tower. I don't know. But this is an interesting change. To me, it looks like Gauntlet 2.0. And the leaderboards look identical from the Gauntlet. Next, let's go over some Barbarian changes and some generic changes. We are getting a new pair of pants, change scored male. All stats instead of strength, max life, cooldown reduction, and brawling skills. Cast a damaging brawling skill, not Warcry. Skill disables it afterwards. When all of these skills that are on your action bar are disabled, they become re-enabled with their cooldowns refreshed. Your brawling skills deal 50 to 100% increased damage for each disabled skill. This could be perma leap, perma charge, or you could use charge, leap, and kick all together. Interesting pants. Now there is something bleed specific that looks interesting. Shattered Vow is getting a rework. Damage over time, duration increase from 44 to 111%. That's amazing. Now with tempering not being able to increase with Masterworking, the max you are going to be able to get on one temper to Flay Duration is 70%, which means Shattered Vow would potentially be better than a tempered Masterworked two-handed sword or polearm. This might make Rend maybe viable. We'll have to wait and see. Debalt's Will also gets a massive rework. Max life replaced with critical strike chance. Damage reduction while unstoppable replaced with attack speed. And resource gain is doubled from 50 to 100. There is a bunch of legendary aspects that are getting more ranks. I don't know if that means that they are going to be increased in power or if they're splitting up the actual damage to them. For example, Creeping Death now has 21 ranks up from 16. So does that mean instead of going from 20 to 40% increase of damage over time, will it go to like 20 to 50? Or will you be able to find 20, 20.5, 21%, 21.5, 22, 22.5? Because if they're not actually increasing the damage of these and they're only increasing the ranks, that's just kind of annoying. For some Barbarian specific changes, for now, our weapon expertise, the rank 10 weapon expertise bonus is now applied when equipped to the weapon technique slot. This is so cool. I really like this. Now, two-handed sword for a bleed build might be the best option instead of 10% damage to vulnerable enemies. Kick is getting a damage boost all around, and power kick is getting a slight weak rework because of the damage increase to kick. Leap can now scale with attack speed. Upheaval still cannot, but can now be cancelled. Upheaval still needs some love. Iron Skin gets a mild rework. It now increases your maximum life by 30%, and you gain a barrier that absorbs 80% of your missing life. It would be really nice if we could just gain a barrier of a percentage of our max life. I think that would make this a lot better. Enhanced Ground Stomp now acts like the Diablo 3 Ground Stomp, where it will generate fury, and it also pulls enemies in towards you. Enhanced Ground Stomp, that's a great change. Call of the Ancients, the duration is increased from 6 to 10 seconds. I think that's great. The more uptime of Call of the Ancients, the better. Iron Maelstrom gets doubled, and I love this. I'm really hoping Iron Maelstrom is going to be a viable build in Season 11. I love this playstyle, I just want it to be better. Enhanced Bash, Strategic Iron Skin, Enhanced Warcry, and Strategic Rallying Cry all have changes based upon the Fortify redesign, which we haven't gone over yet, which we will talk about in just a minute. Same with the passives that they have changed. They have only changed them just because of the Fortify redesign. They've changed a couple specific legendary aspects for Barbarian. The Veteran Brawler, now instead of each time you use a core skill, you have to use a brawling skill. And for Aspect of the Dire Whirlwind, the bonus now persists for 5 seconds after Whirlwind ends, which is a great addition to this aspect. Numbing Wrath, Steadfast Berserker, and Tempering Blow all get a slight change just because of the Fortify redesign. And the unique aspect for Mighty Throw, instead of being every 12 seconds, it's now every 6, and your damage is cut in half. For Paragon Changes, the Dominate Glyph, you now overpower every 6 seconds instead of 12. The Might Glyph's legendary bonus includes damage to injured enemies, so it works more like Slaying Strike. And the Weapon Master legendary node, instead of restoring 8% of max fury, you now get 12 fury. This is a great change unless you have 200 plus fury. For builds that don't have a lot of extra fury, this is amazing. If you do have a lot of fury, it is a nerf. And the Warbringer board gets a slight nerf as well. This was already the worst legendary node as they are been buffing them. So now every 300 fury, you get 10% max life as Fortify, where before it was 75 fury, you gain 15% max life as Fortify. That's all it offers, and I only use this if I have the Magnum Opus because it has the most max fury nodes on it. I really wish this legendary node got a rework. The last change we're going to talk about are to Defense and Fortify. Defense is changing to how it used to be from Season 0 to Season 3 or 4. There are no more penalties for armor and resistance as you move up in tiers, and just like in Season 0 and Season 1, armor now reduces all damage, physical and non-physical, which means we don't need to stack resistances anymore, you just need to stack armor. And this change to me doesn't make any sense. Right now the system we have I think is good. I don't know why they're changing back to what it used to be. They said it was a bug back in the day that armor also is able to buff for like fire damage and stuff, and now it just does. This is kind of weird. Because of this change, they're going to be changing skills and Paragon nodes. For example, we won't need all this fire res on a lot of our boards, so I guess it'll be all res or armor. I'm not sure how it's going to work. This is a very interesting change, and I really don't know why they were doing this. They also changed your healing potions. Now you can only have 4. Your potion heals you for 35% of your max life instantly instead of 200 health points and then 35% over time. That's a decent change. And they've put some different affects on the game, like life on hit, and they've increased life regeneration and life on kill and healing percentages. We'll have to see how that plays out. It could be interesting. Overall, I don't know if they had to change the potion, but let's see how it works. The Fortify redesign, instead of damage reduction, to an additional reservoir of life that is drained while you heal. When you gain Fortify, it'll stack up to your maximum life. When you have Fortify under maximum life, you will heal for a percentage of your maximum life per second in exchange for an equal amount of Fortify. So basically, it's like a free potion that you have all the time. Let's see how that works compared to what it is now. It was nice to have it as damage reduction. They seem to be going away from that. The rest of the changes are for the seasonal realm, and the seasonal changes do look pretty interesting. The first one is sanctification of an item. After you have masterworked it up to quality of 20%, you can get a random affix on it, which is pretty cool. It could either be a legendary power, it can improve an affix to a greater affix, which is awesome. Add a bonus affix from a pool of specific sanctification affixes. Interesting. The worst part though is it can make your item indestructible, preventing it from losing durability. That's kind of lame. I don't think anyone needs that, to be honest. If you could actually break your items in the game and they become not usable and you have to find new items completely, that would be amazing. But because we don't have that, making your items indestructible doesn't make sense. Or you could potentially brick your item, replace an existing affix with a random sanctification affix. I don't know, if we have flay duration and we get something else that's not needed, this could brick the item. So it looks like it could have a lot of upsides with some minor downsides. And the rest of the seasonal content involves around the lesser evils coming back into Sanctuary and is a way to change the gameplay yet again. This season we're getting seasonal gifts instead of powers, which can either be positive or negative. The one they show here is for Duriel. The positive is we gain maximum barrier after becoming injured every 20 seconds. And the negative is Pangs of Duriel ambush you more often and have a 100% chance to shatter your barriers of fortified life with their attacks. So here, these are the gifts. This is Purified, this is the Corruption, and you can play with them as you will. Depending on where they go will depend on what you get as reward. Pangs of Duriel can drop Socketables and Helltide, doubled while Purified. So if you really need Socketables, go to Helltide, put this in as a gift. The seasonal content of Season 11 sounds pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to giving that a try. The overall changes to the game of Season 11 I find are kind of confusing, and I don't really understand why they're doing some of those things. There's also still no change to Rend and Upheaval. Those two skills are still going to be in the dirt. Overall, I think in Season 10, the game is in a great place, and this change up is interesting, seems kind of odd. It's like they're changing the game completely. With this change to armor, with the change to gear, and how you can temper and masterwork it, I'm not sure how it's all going to play out. I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm definitely going to be doing my thoughts of the PTR to see how it plays. To me, it kind of feels like they're trying to nerf things to bring down the power creep. That is my first opinion with what everything is going on. That's not necessarily a bad thing. D3 got way out of hand. I think there's, 16 torment tiers? That feels like the difficulty is out of whack. Power creep's way out of control. There's no reason to play 3/4 of those torment tiers. You get to torment 1 or 2, get a couple pieces of gear, you go to like torment 6, get a couple more pieces of gear, then you're in like torment 13, then you finish your build, you're at like torment 16. That doesn't really feel good. And to me, it seems like they're trying to get away from that. And if that's the case, I think that's a great idea. I really do. But I'm going to hold my reservation on what I really feel about it until I actually play it. I'm optimistic. I think it sounds good. And we'll see how it plays. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And I look forward to the PTR. I'm still going to do some builds for Season 10. And I will see you guys next time.